I know him in many capacities. He has been my pastor. He's done a lot of work training me at work. He's done a lot of work rebuking me in life and teaching me and getting me into different things. But I'll quickly read what is written here. I'm not going to go through the entire profile. I'll spend a lot of time saying how do we shorten it and the like. But I'm going to read a good portion here, and then you see good components of that coming through. He's widely known as an expert in leadership, personal mastery, and emotional intelligence. He has a coaching and training business called Corporate Legends, and as an organization psychologist, he has researched extensively on the subject of leadership development and personal success. His passion is unlocking greatness in individuals, in teams, and in organizations. Leadership development, emotional intelligence, and personal mastery have become his passion. And then from 2000, he has focused on executive development from CEO level to middle management in blue chip companies, leading banks, NPOs, government departments, churches, and large multinationals have benefited from his distinct brand of humor, intensity, and intellectual insight. I probably can add that he actually applies quite a lot of scientific knowledge as well. He is an associate lecturer at several universities. And schools, and has been doing that for many years. Recently, he has developed an online video-based personal learning platform, and many professionals are benefiting from this. You can find it on courses.paulnyamuda.com. This is something that I've utilized. There's a lot of a wealth of knowledge on that profile. He has also spoken on leadership and related issues in SA, number of countries: Swaziland, Zim, Moz, Zambia, DRC, Kenya, Nigeria, pretty much most of the countries in Africa. He has authored more than 50 books. 50 books on leadership, personal mastery, marriage, and related topics. And a lot of these are available on Amazon and the like. He has also spoken on national TV on leadership issues, and currently is a great program on Netflix. My wife switched on it sometime this week, and he says, "Wow, that Pastor Paul program is really good." So I've been booked to watch it as well. He also hosts retreats, marriage breakfasts, and serving our marriage on SABC, and which is of course now on Netflix. He's the founder and senior pastor of Go Christian Church in Centurion. He has been preaching since the age of 12 and involved in church planting since 2000. He has been married to Tracy for 20 years and have 3 boys: Samuel, Jaden, and Daniel. For more information and resources from Paul Nyamuda, you can visit him on paulnyamuda.com, www.gochurch.co.za, and marriagecoach.co.za. Pastor Paul, let me hand over to you so that you minister to the men. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think I'll be using this one. Where's my control? Oh, I've got it here. Thank you so much for the introduction, Felix. Thank you, Wallace, for that prayer. Thanks, guys, for being here. It's such a privilege. I've heard so much about this men's group, and it's really a privilege to be asked to share with you today. I'm going to be speaking fast. I have to be a present father, since that's what I'm preaching on. And I've got three boys playing basketball this morning. I'll miss the youngest one, but I want to try and catch the second and the middle one and the oldest one. So I will dash out straight afterwards. So today we're going to be talking about, I've been asked to speak on the subject of being a present husband and being a present father. So that's really 2 talks in one. So I'm going to speak fast, so I hope you can listen fast. One of the things I've realized is that when a woman is pursuing a man, very often you'll hear ladies, coming up with these lists, and you'll hear them saying things like, I need a guy who's a go-getter. I need a guy who's ambitious. I need a guy who can actually lead me, right? You hear statements like that. Then 2 years into the marriage, you realize that the thing she loved the most is now the thing she loathes the most. Because you see, here she was dreaming of being married to a guy who builds this wonderful business empire. And this guy becomes that. But then you find that 2 years into the marriage, the drive and the ambition this man has is driving him away from home. The drive and ambition this man has, she's like, but I don't see him anymore. So the very thing that she used to love, his ambition, is now the thing she resents. And you'll find that with a lot of women, they don't communicate their needs. And when you don't communicate your needs, you end up protesting. You know what I'm talking about, right? There's the psychology around needs. If you don't communicate your needs, very often you'll end up protesting. How do you end up protesting? You'll find a wife at home becoming very critical. You're not doing enough of this. How come you've come late? How come? Right? You guys know what I'm talking about. And then that pushes the guy away even further because he feels like a hero at work, but feels like a zero at home. But if she just made herself vulnerable and had the needs conversation, she would say something like this: honey, I really miss you. Honey, I wish we could just have some couch time together. Not talking about the kids, not talking about admin, because that's what divorced couples talk about, right? Kids and admin. But just dreaming together like we used to. I wish we could just do that, honey. And you know what? The man is drawn to that because every man, just the way God made us, every man needs a beauty to rescue. So the man is drawn to that. And I always say to the women, but you have to be rescuable, right? But when you feel hurt as a female, it's not easy to make yourself vulnerable. So you protest. And so we've got many marriages today where people are in what we call relationship ambivalence. What is relationship ambivalence? It's where you're like two ships passing each other by. The marriage is too good for you to leave, but it's too bad for you to stay. So you find people saying, we're just here for the kids, right? You find people getting divorced after 26 years of marriage, and you're saying, what is going on? So if we're true leaders as men, how do we fix this? And I love this topic that I've been given. We really fix this by being present. But what does our presence actually look like? That's what we're going to delve in today. The starting point is understanding that you are powerful. Say to the person next to you, I am powerful. I always find this funny because often when I say this in my corporate seminars or wherever, people will laugh while they're saying it. And we often laugh because we don't often feel comfortable with power. Let's be honest, right? We don't often feel comfortable even saying we're powerful because we associate that with what? Arrogance, and we associate it with abuse of power, don't we? But there's nothing wrong with power. Power is A's ability to make B do something B would otherwise not have done. And when power is exerted, it becomes influence. And as a leader in your home and in the corporate world, etc., you're a social architect. You're powerful. What does a social architect do? An architect designed this wonderful building, but a social architect creates climate. The mood that I'm in when I get home this afternoon will determine how the rest of the day will go. That's the power we have as fathers, let's be honest. All right? So we are powerful. I'm powerful. You are powerful. We're fine with power when we're talking about ESCOM, right? But when it comes to saying I am powerful, what happens? We're associated with arrogance and abuse. You see, powerful people decide, this is who I am, this is how I want to show up, this is how I'll live out my life despite the environment. I can be crawling in traffic going at 5 k's an hour, late to see a client I live in Centurion, late to see a client in Sandton, right? The navigation system is saying to me, I was about to say Paul, no, it's not personalized. Navigation system is saying to me, you're in a 35 minutes delay, but you're still on the fastest route. I can't do anything about the traffic, but I can do something about my mood. I am powerful. I've pre-decided I'm a joyful person. I'm not going to give the traffic power over my mood. That's being powerful. But where do most people live? They get into the open plan situation at work. The first question they're asking is, what mood is the boss in today? And if the boss is in a bad mood, I spend my whole day trading on eggshells. And I say to people, don't let someone else's weakness control your emotional state. That's where many people live. Many people's lives today are externally referenced. What do we mean by externally referenced? It's where you hear someone saying, when my hubby stops doing A, B, C, D, then I'll be happy. When my kids start doing X, Y, Z and treating me this way, then I'll be happy. If you study the psychology of joy, happiness is a choice. Happiness is a choice. How many of you in the last 6 months have used the term, she just drives me up the wall? Or he just drives me up the wall? Question, does he or she place you on top of their bonnet and physically drive you up the wall? No. You end up the wall because you're reacting, not responding. You know what's so interesting for me? Nowadays at these high schools, they're big on spirit, aren't they? They get all these musical instruments, they cheer their teams on, you know. It's amazing what they do. My son was playing basketball against Felix's son's school recently. You know, our school was there in full force. They were doing the spirit thing. Their school was doing the spirit thing, okay? But let's be honest, it works for sport. But most of us, we roll out of bed and we just pitch up at work. Let's be honest, right? We don't boost ourselves. I've been thinking to myself, many of us, we're very good at putting our best foot forward with our clients. We talk nicely, we dress nicely, we give them our best intellectually. But if we're honest with ourselves, the people we say we love the most, very often they're getting our leftovers. I was coaching someone, she heads up an institution you'll all be familiar with, and I shared this principle and she said, Paul, you're right. Right now, I think my hubby is getting my leftovers. My question to you is your spouse getting the best of you or getting the crumbs? Just think about that. And you know, I think it happens a lot. A lot of us are very good at preparing to go to work, right? We do boost ourselves. We dress up nicely, talk nicely. But few of us are good at preparing to go back home afterwards. You see, when I get onto the highway and I start going back to Tshwane, I need to start putting my dad cap on. I need to start putting my husband cap on, because those are different roles I'll be playing in those environments. So you are powerful. And here's the ladder of power. And many of us, just assess yourself. Some of us are operating at the bottom there, where we don't know what we don't know, right? And what I've learned is that in business, ignorance is not bliss. And in families, ignorance is not bliss. If there's a war going on and people are shooting, but you didn't know there was a war going on, and you just walk in the middle of the battlefield and you get shot, you can't say, guys, but I didn't know. You didn't inform me there's a war going on here. And many of us are in situations where we don't know a lot of things. We don't know our spouse's love languages. We don't know our children's love languages. There are a lot of things we don't know, but ignorance is not bliss. And that's why I always say leaders are readers. The book of Hosea, powerful. It says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. It didn't say my people perish because they don't know anything. My people perish for a lack of knowledge. We perish because we don't know enough. And we are God's people, but we can be perishing, right? So that's the starting point. It's a place of powerlessness. Then level 2 is we blame others. Who do you blame for your situation? Is it your children? Is it your wife? Who are you blaming? One of the things I've learned is that when you blame someone else or something else, you deny yourself the ability to change. And I've seen in organizations, there's what's called emotional contagion. People feed off each other. Have you noticed? There's a season where we're all blaming IT. There's another season we're blaming HR. It's HR. Look at their recruitment. They're so slow. I've got all these vacancies. Yeah, it's HR, it's HR, it's HR. One NGO I was dealing with, I basically say to them, you guys feed off each other. When we have meetings, you know, if one of you starts off negative, then everyone is negative. If one of you starts off positive, then everyone is positive. They said, Paul, it's so true. They said, Paul, the tension starts in that corner over there and it just spreads. That this L-shaped open plan situation. Guys, we have to stop blaming people. I'm not talking about making people accountable. We have to take charge of our lives. One of the things I've learned is that when it comes to our careers, there's no one out there having sleepless nights about your career. No one out there, even if you've got a wonderful boss at work, he's not like lying down like, honey, I can't go to bed. I'm just worried, you know, what's going to happen to Wallace, you know, in 2 years' time, even if he's the nicest of bosses. And I always say to people, if you don't take charge of your career, no one will take charge of it for you. No one will manage it for you. And it's the same in life with our parenting. It's the same in life with our husbanding, for want of a better word. So people have asked me, last 15 years, people ask me, so Paul, how's life treating you? I say to them, I'm treating it well, thank you. Consistently, that's my answer. Paul, how's married life treating you? I'm treating it well, thank you. Do you know why I say that? The influence and impact I have on the world around me is bigger than it has on me, right? That's the mindset of powerful people. And all of us in this room, all of you listening online, we are powerful, right? The third level, and it's still a place of powerlessness, is I can't, and we make excuses. And I call this rationalizing away your mediocrity. You know, so you see it with salespeople, don't you? You must understand, Paul, I'm in the East Rand, I'm not in Sandton. You must understand, right? We make excuses. You hear some ladies saying, you must understand, Paul, I'm a single mom, I'm a single mom. I'm asking, why are all the other single moms outperforming everyone else? Why do you keep using that as an excuse? Maybe something was a good excuse 5 years ago, but it's no longer an excuse. I didn't go to those schools that you guys went to. Look at all those people who went to far worse schools than some of us. Look how they're outperforming us. So why do you keep using your school as an excuse? What do you use as an excuse for your lack of presence at home? Right? We rationalize away our mediocrity. The fourth one, it's still a place of powerlessness, and it's we wait and we hope. This is very common, isn't it? Now, waiting is not a bad thing. It's actually a sign of humility, isn't it? You wait for that specialist because you know he's going to help you, right? And hope is a good thing, isn't it? He's the God of hope, right? Hope is joyful expectation. So why is it under that line? Why am I putting it under that line? Because very often I've realized that there's a fine line between patience and passivity. And there are many people who think they're patient as a person, but they're actually passive. I'm just waiting for my boys to mature. I'm just waiting until they're not that busy. I'm waiting for the holidays. Then we'll have good dad and son talk, good dad and dad and daughter talk. You know, I'm just waiting. You see it in the corporate world. Deal with lots of executives who say, I wish my people would be more proactive. I was coaching one city manager and he says, Paul, I don't like postmen. The guys who report to me are very senior, but they act like postmen. I give them an idea, they don't develop it. They just pass it on as is. I don't like postmen, right? That's what he would say to me. And you find that those people, you speak to them and you say, but you guys are empowered. Recently in one organization, they said, Paul, we know we've been empowered, but we are afraid if we step out and make those decisions, we'll be walloped. So we just leave it to them to make those decisions. And many of us who are waiting for service providers to do something for us, the reason why their service is being delayed is no one is making a decision. People are indecisive. There's a strong correlation between leadership greatness and decisiveness. And the honest truth is many of us in our homes, we've abdicated decision making. We've thought to ourselves like, I must empower everyone in the house. I must be an empowering father. And so we're not being decisive anymore. I'm not talking about being dictatorial. I'm talking about being able to say, you know what? I'm making a decision here. We need to actually be having more meals together so that we're fully engaged and fully present. I'm making a decision in this household that we need to put our phones on flight mode and have them charging while we are together. We made a decision, my wife and I recently, where we said this whole headphone thing, you know, when people have got their iPhone, what are they called? Earpieces on, and everything is all, you know, everyone else is shut out. I had to say to my kids, guys, when you're in the car, you only, you know, you can't do that. When you're in the car and you've got your, one of your ears must be available in case we want to say things, right? When you're around us in the home, we can't be saying to you when you're just walking across there, come for dinner, and you can't hear us. We had to make a call. Because you see, guys, when I look at all these places of powerlessness, I say to myself, in my life, in many aspects of my life, I feel very powerful, but in many aspects of my life, in some aspects of my home life, I feel powerless. Sometimes I have to remind myself, my wife and I, we have had chats where we say to each other, my love, we're the parents, aren't we? Yeah, we're the parents. We are powerful, aren't we? Yeah, we are powerful. We can mete out consequences to our kids when they disobey us, can't we? Yes, we can. We have to remind ourselves that we are still the parents. And that's why when you look at this ladder of power, you will notice that you vacillate, don't you? Between powerlessness and being powerful. So when we talk about being powerful, number 5 is acknowledging reality. That's the starting point. It's where you can face yourself. It's where you can face your work, and it's where you can face others. When you acknowledge reality, you're talking about the elephant in the room. I was dealing with one organization recently, and I said, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. And they said to me, Paul, but we've got many elephants. We've got a whole herd of elephants. We have to talk about everything in one go. All right? Acknowledge reality. Where are you really at? Are you really a present husband? Are you really a present father? Have the difficult conversation. I said to my boys a couple of weeks ago, guys, you know what? I'm going to be having one-on-ones with you because I think there's serious things we need to talk about and we need to address. Acknowledging reality, okay? Acknowledging reality is facing stuff. Facing stuff, number one, is you look in the mirror and you say, oh, guys, I'm actually disorganized. Oh, guys, I'm actually a bad listener. Oh, guys, I'm actually much smarter than the work that I'm doing. Oh, guys, I'm being a bad role model to you as my children. It's facing yourself. The second thing to do is face your work. Facing your work is realizing, you know what, I was actually in this career because I was trying to impress my dad. I actually need to do something else. That's facing your work, right? I remember speaking to someone years ago. I was coaching them. They were at Nokia. They said, Paul, you know what? I'm going to have to face my work. There's things I'm doing right now that are draining for me that I don't enjoy. But those guys over there enjoy it. I think we need to swap aspects of our roles. I had to face my work, right? This person said to me. The third aspect is of acknowledging reality is facing others. A lot of people struggle with this and they never go to that next level of success in their lives because they don't know how to have difficult conversations with other people. What is facing others? It's where you have to sometimes downgrade a friendship. It's where you have to sometimes say, you know what, this person was a friend of mine, but they should now be an acquaintance. It's where you have to have that difficult conversation with someone where you say, listen, dude, you're right. I have been ignoring you because the last 3 times you've contacted me, you've wanted something from me. But I believe friendship needs to be mutual. You know, it has to be a two-way street. Yes, with many people we help out in life, not expecting anything in return. But if someone says, I am your friend, that's the level of relationship, then it has to be mutual. For any relationship to be sustainable, it must be mutual. That's why in a marriage, people are looking for mutuality. If a woman comes and says to me, oh, you know what, I want to marry this dude. I really want to marry this dude. I say, why do you want to marry this dude? I adore him so much. What's my first question? Are the sentiments mutual? Does he also adore you? Okay, right? It's so important. That's why there are books out there that say he just ain't into you or she just ain't into you. People are looking for mutual affection. People are also looking for mutual respect, right? I respect you, but I know that you also respect me. People are looking for mutual sacrifice in friendships and in marriage. You know what? I've given up so much for this marriage, but you can't even lift a finger. Okay? People are looking for mutual trust. How come I trust you with the finances, but you micromanage me with the finances? Okay? People are looking for mutuality. You cannot have a sustainable relationship without mutuality. Are there things your spouse does for you, but you never do for them? Doesn't have to be the exact thing, but do they generally feel that, you know what? I'm putting 100% into this relationship. You're also putting 100%. I am present with the children. I also see elements of your presence with the children in your own way. Are they seeing that? If it's not mutual, it doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen, right? So we must acknowledge reality, right? Current reality assessment. Number 6, we start taking ownership. So we don't say these are the issues, but you fix it. We say these are the issues I'm facing, but you know what? I'm part of the solution, right? And whenever someone isn't taking ownership, key coaching question to ask them is, how do you think you might have contributed to the problem, right? Another question to ask them is, if that person you keep blaming never changes, what can you still do differently, right? Then we start finding solutions, then we lead and we make things happen. But the starting point is acknowledging reality. Why? Accurate diagnosis will result in accurate solution. Very often we go very quickly into solution mode. We read a book, we're doing this. We listen to a talk by Paul, we're doing this. But we don't first go through the process of what are our issues and accurately defining the issues so that we can lead and we can make things happen. That's the ladder of power. It's very powerful, sorry for the pun, to use this ladder of power. Right? One organization I was dealing with at the coast, they said, Paul, the Exco, they said, we actually now use this as a language. When someone says statements down here, below the line, we say to them, you're speaking below the line. That's powerlessness. How can you speak above the line? Let's delve into some of the issues that we're going to delve into. I want to just say to you, not everything is on 100%. Not everything's on 100. You know, when we're growing up, we used to use those MIDI systems. Now we're dating ourselves, right? You know, those MIDI systems with graphic equalizers. And there's some people who thought that, you know, the best sound comes when everything is up on 100, right? Treble, bass, everything, it's on 100. That's the best sound. We know that's not the case. You know, some people are wired like that, their personalities. My grandmother's kittens died. It's on 100. You know, my boss didn't like my presentation. Crisis mode. It's on 100. I say to people, ask yourself, what's on 100? What's on 70? What's on 60? What's on a 2? As you assess all of this, ask yourself the question, what do my kids need from me that only I can give them? Give them that. The rest you can delegate. Years ago, when my firstborn son, Samuel, was still quite young, he was going for a soccer match early on a Saturday morning, and his mom was taking him. And he says, Dad, why aren't you coming to my soccer? Why is it just mom? And I said, I have to do a talk for some very important people. It was an entrepreneurial thing I was doing. I have to go and speak to them. He said, Dad, can't someone else do that? And then you can come to my soccer. What was Samuel saying to me? You know what he was really communicating? I only have one father. That's really what he was saying. I only have one dad. No one can replace you. It won't be the same. Can you see where I'm going? I have to ask myself, what do my kids need from me that only I can give them? The rest I can delegate. And what happens with a lot of us is everything is on 100. So we're wasting so much energy doing things for our kids that they don't need us to do. Because your kids grow and they outgrow certain stages where they needed you for certain things when they were 5 years of age. But at 17, 18, they need something else. But we're still trying to treat them like they're 5-year-olds. What do they need from me in this season that only I can give them? Let me focus on that. The rest I can delegate. And I'll give you some clues for that. Keep the main thing the main thing. What's the main thing they need? Are you preparing to go to work more than you're prepared to go home? So the present husband, Bible says in Ephesians 5, verse 25, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Now that's massive if you just meditate on that scripture. If I say I want to be a present husband, I have to understand that when I said I do, it wasn't just I'm being faithful to you, I'm not going to cheat on you. It's way more than that. I'm basically saying I do. I'm promising my wife that I'll be fully present. I'm promising my wife that by God's grace, I will love you just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. I'm saying all those dreams I have, all those things I want to accomplish, I'm willing to give up self for you. That's a massive commitment we're making. What does that look like in everyday life? You know, I always say to people, the secret to greatness is hidden in your daily routine. I think it's actually a Stephen Covey one, although I've now claimed it. I always say that to people, right? I've possibly said it more times than he's said it, right? But I think he's the first person I heard it from. The secret to greatness is hidden in your daily routine. If you've got someone out there who you admire, ask yourself, what's their daily routine? Don't measure their life by their peaks, by their big breakthroughs. What do they do on a daily basis? Meditate on this scripture and ask yourself, what does giving myself up for my wife actually look like on a daily basis? There are times when I'm deep in work mode and the Lord will convict me and say, Paul, what's the best use of your next 30 minutes? And I can hear that my wife is about to have lunch in the kitchen. You know what? It's actually being fully present for her. Let me actually go to her right now. Okay? It boils down to that. We've all been given 24 hours in a day. The difference between us, whether you're Barack Obama, Jacob Zuma, Simba Majande, whoever you are, the difference between us is how we use the 24 hours. People will say to me, Paul, why are you so productive? You're producing this, producing this, producing that. What's the key to this? And I say it's the use of time. If we're really worshipers of God, if we're really Christ followers, it boils down to what does your schedule look like at the end of the day? You know, glorifying Jesus is not just what I do in a church service. It's how do I live my life on a daily basis? How am I showing up, right? So there's the John Legend song that we all know. And the words are so powerful, isn't it? Because all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. Give your all to me. I'll give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning. Even when I lose, I'm winning because I give you all of me and you give me all of you. I think that's such a powerful picture of marriage. I'm giving you all of me, not just half of me. Does she have all of you? So what are the 7 A's of a present husband? I've tried to make it easy to remember, so they all start with A. And it's very behavioral stuff. The first thing is you have to be aspiring to be a present husband. What do I mean by aspire? To aspire is to dream. So have a dream for your marriage. Problem with many of us is, if I say to you, what's your vision? What are your goals? We've got wonderful goals when it comes to finance and career. We're good at that. But the problem is our lives aren't balanced. And we don't have goals and dreams. And we're not aspiring when it comes to what type of husband do I want to be? What kind of dad do I want to be in the next 5 years? I'm not a perfect father. I'm certainly not the father that I want to be, but I'm certainly not the father I was. I'm a growing father. That's personal mastery. You're not trying to be perfect, right? But you're growing, right? Dreaming is not just about in 10 years' time, where do I see myself? Dreaming is about visualizing, what is this evening going to look like? What's my next date with my wife going to look like? That's aspiring. Animals can't aspire. Last time I checked, our Great Dane dog didn't come to me and say, Paul, here's my 5-year plan. But we can do that as human beings. So we've got 8 major areas of life, don't we? We've got finance, we've got career, we've got health. And I like to split up health into nutrition and fitness. Okay? I've just, last Sunday, I was doing the Cape Town Marathon. It was my first marathon distance, 42.2 Ks. It was tough, but I did it, right? But I had certain aspirations. And when you've got aspirations, it's not just about outcome goals. It's also about process goals, which is a mistake a lot of us make. We dream of running a sub this and a sub that, but we don't dream of us following a daily routine, following a program, all right? Those are process goals, and that's very important. Then one day we surprise ourselves with the results. But you know what? Sometimes I have to watch my eating. It's not just about fitness. I'm the fittest I've ever felt in my life, hey? At 48. I'm the fittest I've ever felt. But you know what? Sometimes I compromise in terms of some of the things that go into my system, right? Like, oh, this is a bit too much sugar, Paul. So health goals are so important. What about your goals in terms of recreational companionship, your friendships? I've got a friend, I've been friends with him for years. He pastors a church in Berlin now, right? But he's around at the moment. He's preaching in our church on Sunday. For the next few days, I'll spend time with him, right? And I had to remind myself my friendships are important because sometimes you get so busy with other things. So the point I'm making here is if you want to be a great husband, you have to aspire. You have to dream. There was a time when I had a date with my wife. I'd just taken my youngest boy when he turned 13, some time back. And I'd just taken him to a father and son camp that transitions boys into men. And I remember coming back home and sharing with my wife, this is what we did, this is what we did. But I didn't ask her many questions about how she was doing when she remained at home, right? So we then had a date a couple of days later, and I aspired. I dreamt, what do I want the date to be like? I said to myself, I want to just listen, and I want to draw her out. And I did that. And it was interesting because afterwards she was like, I really love that conversation. I really like that. And you know what I said to her? I said, my love, you know what? Many of us are good at preparing to speak. Few of us are good at preparing to listen and preparing to ask questions. And I knew that the reason why that date was really nice, I wasn't talking too much. I was drawing her out. But I could only do that because I was aspiring to do that. I was dreaming. What's your dream for your family right now? The more vivid that picture is, the more likely it is to take place. You know, you can be present, but how? Because sometimes we just by default, yes, we're present because we're around the house, but we're in business mode. My wife has complained at times because I would be around, but I was just in business mode. The second A for a present husband is being attentive. Are you a good listener? Do you make your wife feel significant because you're fully engaged? Or are you always distracted? The phone. One of my habits is when I get home, I put my phone on flight mode because I want to be fully present and engaged with the people. The sky won't fall. Then after a couple of hours, I'll go and I'll check, is there anything I need to respond to? The sky won't fall. What happens when you're on a plane flying? You can't respond to people, right? How attentive are you? If you struggle with listening skills, just Have the 10-minute rule, where you make a decision that, you know what, I'm just going to be listening for 10 minutes and I'm not going to be speaking. I'm just going to be drawing out my spouse. I'm going to be listening with empathy. I'm going to show that I'm attached. I'm going to show that I'm engaged, but I'm just going to be listening, not coming up with solutions. The third one is be affirming. You get what you appreciate. Someone once said, what you think about and what you thank about is what you eventually bring about. Be affirming. Validate your spouse. Say to yourself, today, I want to just catch my wife doing the right thing. And when I see her doing something that is really wonderful that I wanted to replicate, I'm going to celebrate it. Because people always gravitate to where they celebrate it, not where they tolerate it. You know what happens? In marriage, it's been found that if you have 50% of the time negative experiences in your marriage and the other 50% positive experiences, overall, how will you feel? You'll feel unhappy. You'll feel like my marriage is negative because your negative emotions outweigh your positive. For every dose of negative emotion in my body right now, I need 5 doses of positive emotions to flush out the negative, right? So for our spouses to feel happily married to us, the positive emotions, the positive feedback, for every cold prickly they experience from us, they need to be experiencing 5 to 8 warm fuzzies. You see, that's just how human beings are wired. So if they say to you, you know what, I feel like you're always criticizing me. If you start saying, oh, but the other day I said this, the other day I said that, you'll see in many marriages, it's like, okay, that's 50% critical statements, 50% positive statements. You're right, you've said positive things, but 50-50 doesn't work in a marriage. That's just how people are wired. And you know what tends to happen? Often our spouses are doing good things, but we don't say anything because in our minds, we think they're just doing their job. They should go to the Lord for praise and honor and recognition. It's unhealthy, them looking for it from us. That's the mindset. I remember challenging some people from Murray and Roberts years ago. I said, you engineers, you're just like auditors. No offense if you're an auditing background. No offense. No offense if you're an engineer. I said, you're just like auditors. You've been trained to spot the blips. It makes you a good engineer. It makes you a good auditor. But when it comes to managing people, you do what we call management by exception, where you only talk to your subordinates when there's a problem to solve. You're always canceling your one-on-ones with them because there's no issues, right? So we don't need to talk, we don't need to meet, right? So their association with you is just when there's a problem to fix. I say to them, I want you to start a new management practice. When you are preparing to go to work, say to yourself, today, I want to catch someone doing the right thing. And when you see them doing the right thing, celebrate it and reinforce the behavior. Guys, it's the same in our marriages. You see, you get what you appreciate. You get what you appreciate when you catch your spouse doing the right thing, even if they don't do it that often, right? When I speak to the treasure in my wife, she becomes that. We can talk about negative and constructive feedback on another day, but I'm just talking about catching someone doing the right thing. The fourth thing is be accessible. Be accessible. Every great leader must be both accessible and approachable. I remember this was before COVID, when you'd see your boss every day. I remember a particular lady saying to us in a group coaching session, she said, guys, I never see my boss. He's always either working from home or in meetings. I literally don't see him. So was that leader accessible? He wasn't. But was he approachable as a person? Probably on the rare occasion that she saw him. Okay? Are you accessible to your family? Can they get hold of you? Can they reach you? Are you the type of person who prioritizes them, who can say to people, oh, guys, it's my wife. Can you just excuse me from the meeting? Do you have that type of code? When you see a WhatsApp and you've got a whole list of WhatsApps to respond to, but you see your spouse's, do you prioritize hers? That's just one of my codes, you know, that, oh, if it's from my wife, let me look at it first. Let me see if she needs me. And she feels honored because of that. That's to do with accessibility, okay? A lot of us, we're not approachable. We see this a lot, even in the workplace as men, don't we? I remember a guy, he had this German efficiency about him. He was working for one of the main banks. I was coaching him at the time. I had to help him with work-life balance. He was always at work, but his subordinates would complain to me and say, Paul, can you speak to him? because we need his knowledge. But when we go up to him and we say, can you help us with A, B, C, D? He shrugs his shoulders and is like, was he accessible? Yes, he was. He was always there. You could go and you could talk to him. But his whole body language was, you're disturbing me. Are we approachable people, or are children scared of us? Let's be honest. I was coaching a couple recently, and one of the situations they found themselves in is that their child failed a particular exam and so on at university, right? And he couldn't tell the parents for a year. He hid it from them. I was counseling the child now, and I said, hey, what happened? Why couldn't you tell your parents, right? And so children are growing up today with so many such high standards in their lives, right? Where it's like, this guy's like, I'm the firstborn. I can't let them down. I need to achieve. I've never experienced failure in my life. Now, the parents are loving parents. They love him unconditionally. But the child is growing up feeling like, I can't approach my parents on this particular thing. My question to you is, what are you like with your children? Are you approachable? You know, one of the ways you become approachable, if you study the science of likability, you smile. Some people, their faces look like they've been baptized in lemon juice because they're not conscious of how they show up at home. And people are like, he's in a bad mood. Let me just give him space. How approachable are you? Can your children talk to you about their failure, or are they always putting their best foot forward? Ask yourself that question. Dad, I did this, I did this. I've watched it with my boys, where sometimes they will brag when they get very good results. When they get bad results, I say to them like, oh, you don't seem to be talking about that. How come you're very transparent and open with your successes, but not your failures? And that's one of the key things we'll talk about a bit later, that we model that for our children. Are we showing them our success, or are we showing them how we overcome trials? Are we trying to be superhero dad, where they just see the breakthrough and see us as these wonderful providers? Or do they see the pain we go through, where they can pray together with us and say, we believe in God for this because this ain't happening right now? Do they see us in our struggles? We have to model that for them. How appreciative are we of our spouses? When you're being present as a husband, part of your presence is, I see you. I see what you did for the children last week. I see what you're doing for them today. You know, I like saying this when I'm working with couples. Make a list of everything you appreciate in your spouse. Okay? They can come up with maybe 20 things each. Then I say to them, I want you for the next month to communicate three each day. Each morning when you get up, tell them the 3 things that you appreciate about them. And don't keep repeating the same ones. Right? It's amazing how that just changes a marriage, changes the climate. Right? Whenever you appreciate someone, I talk about PAD, PAD. Appreciate their personality, appreciate their abilities, and appreciate their deeds. We're good at appreciation of deeds, but not ability and personality. Some years ago, there was a time I arrived home and my wife was hosting something and I was late. I was at another function. I arrive home and my wife says, phew, it's so lovely to have your bubbly sunshine yellow personality here. It takes the pressure off me. Thanks. I feel relieved. She was just appreciating me for my personality. I hadn't done anything, right? You appreciate people for their ability. Oh, we missed your analytical skills at the start of the meeting. Glad you're now here. That's their ability, right? And you appreciate their deeds. Now, whenever you appreciate their deeds, you know, you can thank someone 3 times for the same thing, right? You send them, you say, can you go and buy this and this and this? I'm not feeling well. Can you buy this and this and this from the shops, please? And as they say, yeah, I'll do it, you say, thank you for that. While they're there and they phone you and they say, do you also want XYZ? Thank you for that. When they come back and they get you an additional thing that you didn't ask them for, thank you for that. It's amazing when there's a culture of appreciation in a marriage. People don't feel taken for granted. Often, while my wife is cooking, I'll go up to her, I might touch her on the back and say, my love, thanks. I know you've just had a very long cycle. Okay, she's into endurance mountain biking. She's into triathlons and so on, right? In December, she's doing the Desert Dash again, but this time the solo. That's 400 Ks in under 24 hours of cycling. Okay, that's what she does, right? This morning, she's doing like a 7-hour ride, right? That's the machine she is. But sometimes if she's cooking, making stuff for us, she still hasn't even showered or anything, and she still might say, my love, thanks so much for doing this, especially because I know you must be super tired. While we are eating, oh, this tastes really nicely. Thank you so much. Now I'm full. Thanks for the meal. It was really lovely. You almost overdo it. What are you doing? You don't want them to ever feel taken for granted. Okay? Whenever you thank someone for their deed, two things to also add. Number one, you mention the sacrifice involved. Number two, you mention the benefit to you. Otherwise, they feel like you're thanking them just for giving them a sweet. You know when someone gives you a sweet, you're like, oh, thanks. They give you a chewing gum, thanks. Let's be honest. Sometimes our spouses can say thanks to us, and we're like, yes, they've ticked the box, but they don't know what I went through. So that's why to be a present husband, I need to be able to say to my wife, thanks for taking the boys to your folks. I know you weren't feeling 100%. That's the sacrifice involved. It really freed me up to be able to edit that book, Benefit to Me. When you practice that as a habit, it takes the marriage to another level. You're basically saying, I see you. You're basically saying, I'm not indifferent to your love bids. You influence me. It made a difference. It impacted me. Maybe on another occasion, I'll talk to you about love bids. But a love bid is any offer that you make to your spouse for connection, right? For them to influence you. Any offer for that. Any offer of love. Hey, come and watch this with me. Hey, thanks for the coffee. Hey, here's a coffee for you. It's a love bid. Hey, I think you'll find this joke funny. It's a love bid. And the marriages that are successful happen when you don't turn away from the love bid, but you turn toward it. You don't turn against it. You can turn against a love bid. Come on, can't you see I'm busy? Why do you keep calling me to watch those clips? You've turned against it. Turning away from it is just ignoring it. You want to turn toward the love bid. Marriages that fail, very often love bids are being offered left, right, and center, and couples are turning away or turning against. There's a time I was feeling quite stressed out. My wife makes me a coffee. I'm about to rush out. She says, oh, there's a coffee there for you. And I barely hear what she's saying. I'm so much in my own world. And she says to me, that was a love bid. And it lands. She had offered me a love bid, but I was turning, not against it, away from it. I wasn't turning toward it. You're a present husband when you show affection. Are you showing affection? You see, I can be present at home, but often I'm in business mode. No affection, no tenderness. Don't measure your presence by where you are geographically located. You see, very often we judge ourselves by our intentions. Right? My intentions are good. I'm providing. But our spouse will judge us by the impact our behavior has on their emotional state. That's very important. We judge ourselves by our acts of service and physical presence, but our spouses are judging us by the impact of our presence on their emotional state. When you reconnect with your wife later on today, what's going to happen? How present are you? Let's talk now about the present father. Let's talk about the present father. You know, fatherless homes actually account for 63% of youth suicides. When it comes to homeless kids, 90% of homeless kids. Behavioral disorders, 85% of those cases, the father is not present. Rapists, if you line them up, all the guys who are raping women today, 80% of them come from fatherless homes. And we just need to do the stats. These people who think like, oh, no, it's fine. I don't need a man. We don't need men. You know, we can be two moms, you know, at home together. All this stuff people are talking about today. There's a reason God created them male and female. There's something about your presence as a male, okay, that makes a difference to your children. And we see the stats. And we see these stats throughout the world. It's not like, oh, in Africa, it's not the same. Oh, in Asia, it's different. High school dropouts, right? Chemical abuse, 75% of the cases, fatherless homes. That's the difference you make. And you know what? The enemy's strategy is to destroy our self-esteem. So we think, what difference does it make? My wife is super mom anyway. I'm just needed to make the bucks. And we think that's okay. State-operated institutions, 70% fatherless homes. People in prison, 85%. You guys have heard the stats before, haven't you? What happens in prisons on Mother's Day? Lots of cards. Guys are saying, yeah, send this to my mom, send this to my mom. What about Father's Day? What happens? Hardly anyone. So this is what I challenge fathers to do today. Now, I'm saying these things. I've actually got a book coming out in the next couple of weeks called The Parenting Restart. And I go more in depth into the fatherlessness that we're experiencing in homes. And if you look in South Africa, if you look on SA stats, and I've got those stats in the book, but it's the Black African homes where it's a very low percentage of fathers there present. Okay? And you know where it's highest in terms of presence of a father? The Asian families. So all those Muslim guys teaching their children about Islam, etc., those guys are at home. And us so-called Christian parents, especially in the Black African homes, not present. That's a problem. That's a problem. Because what's going to happen to the next generation? So this is what I challenge fathers to do today. Ask yourself these questions. Do my children only see my success, or do I let them into my failure? Am I present only when I'm successful, or am I present with my failures? Do they see me being generous? Are they seeing me role modeling generosity? Am I modeling kindness and tenderness? Do they see me loving my wife? They have to see it being modeled. You know, we used to have guys who would stay with us on a Friday night, guys from our band when they were single, right? Most of them now married, etc. But we've known them for a good 10 years or so. And when we would have band practice at our house, right, they would then sleep over on the Friday night. And I enjoyed it because my kids were young at the time, and they would see me being present with my children. And they'll see something being modeled, especially because some of the guys didn't grow up with their dads. People have to see it in order to do it. Do they sense my approval and my acceptance? Are we connecting at a deep level? Sometimes this is a fearful thing. My wife has had to say to me, do you tell the boys that you love them? Because there's some things we find awkward, hey, as guys. You know, there's the bro code. Especially when you say certain things to your sons and you feel the rejection. Let's be honest. You know, you can say certain things to daughters, to girls, and so on, and they say it back to you, right? Sometimes with my, hey, love you guys, and so on. Cool, Ned. Like, sometimes it's like, love you too. Yes, on the odd occasion you hear that, right? But it's important. Why? Because I want them to grow up being tender to their wives one day. And you can only do this when you know how to make yourself vulnerable. You can only have emotional intimacy in a relationship when there's some degree of vulnerability. Are you able to make yourself vulnerable? What do my children need from me that only I can give them? Give them that. The rest you can delegate. Am I demonstrating empathy to them? We'll talk about that just now. So how can you be present in your family to your children? I want to say that this applies to you whether you stay with your children or in a blended family situation where sometimes your kids are not with you. Research has actually found that even if you're co-parenting, because that's the reality nowadays, right? Where half the families are like that. If you only step into your children's lives occasionally, even if you work on these principles, you'll see positive results in your children. I'm saying this because many people are all or nothing people. So they're like, I don't see my kids that often, and I can't, even legally. So I failed as a father, so I'm not going to ever see them. That's perfectionism, where just because you can't get 100%, then you'd rather not do anything. Doesn't work that way. So the first area to be present for them is be present for discipline and accountability. Be present for discipline and accountability. Discipline gives a child moral boundaries. Discipline reinforces and trains a child's conscience. Discipline teaches a child to live by convictions and not by their emotions. We identify people by their convictions. You want to show your children that, hey, what's your conviction? Did you live it out? Why didn't you live out your conviction in this instance? Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is training. That's why if you look at the word in the Greek for discipline, right? The word discipliner, which literally means to learn. That's where we get the word disciple from. Disciple is one who sits under teaching and learns, right? You're not punishing a child. You're training a child, okay? Discipline helps to reinforce healthy boundaries. Discipline protects a child's moral conscience, and you want to be doing that. Discipline prepares a child. Discipline trains a child about consequences. So when it comes to our children, there's a stage for protection where we're protecting them from the world because they're not actually emotionally or even intellectually ready for certain things. So they shouldn't be exposed to those things, right? That's discipline. We're protecting them. But there's a stage where we're preparing them. And the preparation aspect is we're now saying, okay, let's watch the movie. But we're now going to comment and we're going to say, we disagree with that. You know that. Why is that a foolish decision that person is making? So we don't agree with everything in the movie, but we talk about it. So we're exposing them little by little, but we're getting them to actually engage with it and not assume that that's correct. Okay? So discipline is good. And as fathers, we need to be present when it comes to this. Now, what's important for me is just understanding this. If you look at this particular table, it's an interesting one because it's been found that the best type of children, most well-adjusted, come from homes where the parents are authoritative. And authoritative here means that there's 100% discipline, but there's also 100% affection. So when affection is high and discipline is high, you get the authoritative parent. That's our goal, guys. We need that. The problem is a lot of people are authoritarian, very rigid. There's a guy I've been counseling for a long time, him and his wife, and I said to him, you're too rigid, you need to be flexible. He keeps pushing, keeps pushing. I said, your wife feels like she's a child in this household. Your children feel under so much pressure. Your 15-year-old is saying to me, 15-year-old girl is saying to me, her coping mechanism is just knowing that she's just got 3 years to go, then she's out of here. And that's being authoritarian. That's where you're 100% discipline, but sometimes when it comes to affection, it's very low. When it comes to connecting, it's very low. Something to be careful about, okay? And then you have the parents who are very permissive, very high on affection. You know those parents, they drop off their child and then they do a Yui because they feel they didn't hug and kiss them enough, right? So that person is the permissive parent. They're high on affection, but very low on discipline. Then you've got the absent one who's uninvolved. They're physically at home, but they're distant. And you ask many people, did your father love you? And you hear them saying, Paul, the way I've processed it, I think they did because they provided for me and they did discipline me from time to time. Yeah. Then I say, did you feel your father's delight? And they say, mm-mm. They didn't. You can only pass on what you have. Someone once said, consciously I teach what I know. Unconsciously I pass on who I am. And the struggle many of us have is we know our fathers loved us, but we didn't always experience their full presence. We didn't always experience their delight. And now in our relationship with God, we're working on those things so that He fills us up, so that we can express that. with our kids because we know we do A, B, C, D for them, but we're not always emotionally present. And these fathers over here often are low on discipline, but also low on affection. Be very careful of trying to discipline your children when there's no bond. Your children are more likely to obey you when there's an emotional bond between father and son. Just watch out for that. You see it even in blended families. This new stepdad comes on the scene and he now tries to be the man and starts disciplining kids who aren't biologically his. You can only really do that if the child is under 4. When they're over 4 and you just step in and try to, this child is looking at you and saying, there's no connection here. And now you want to be the main disciplinarian. The thing that gives you authority in their lives is when they see you as a provider of good things and a provider of good times. If you're not even doing that, how do you discipline that person, right? One of the things that gives you authority in someone's life is also when you can set rules and enforce them. So sometimes in blended family situations, you're coming and you're partnering with the biological parent to say, let me assist you in disciplining your child. For now, my role is to pursue them so that I gain an emotional bond with them. And maybe over time, they'll let me in. It's a process. With blended family situations, you can go the slow cooker route, which is a good route to go, or you can go the microwave oven route, which is a dangerous route to go. I wanted to mention that in case anyone listening is in that situation, okay? The second thing is be present to show empathy. There are 3 types of empathy. And very often people need all 3 types, by the way, right? I love empathy. Empathy comes from an interesting Latin word, empathos. It literally means feeling into, wearing someone else's moccasins. That's what it means. And when you show empathy in your household, it's very powerful. I still remember there was a time when my youngest son, he was about to play a soccer match. And my wife and I were feeling like, I'm getting tired. Hey, another game, have to go. Then it was rained off. And my wife and I almost fist pumped each other like, one less thing to do today. When you're just tired on some Saturdays. And the Holy Spirit convicted me, right? How is Daniel feeling about the game being canceled? He loves his soccer, right? And Lord just reminded me I needed to go to him and demonstrate empathy. Oh man, Dan, but sad, hey, right? Regardless of how I was feeling. So empathy is when you can see the world from someone else's frame of reference. That's empathy. But there are 3 types. The first type is emotional empathy. Emotional empathy is I feel you. If I say, oh, guys, I've got a migraine. You say to me, Paul, how'd you carry on teaching with the migraine? And is it above your eyes? Where is it so? Okay, I don't really have a migraine right now. It's just an example, okay? Okay, some guys are getting worried, right? That's emotional empathy. Second type of empathy is cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy is this. If I say, Wallace, who's your best friend? You'll say, it's so-and-so. I say, why are they your best friend? Paul, you know what? This guy gets me. Paul, this guy follows my logic. Paul, I don't feel stressed out when I'm in this guy's presence, right? That's cognitive empathy. The third type of empathy is empathic concern. And empathic concern is I'm here for you. Empathic concern is, oh, okay, you can't do A, B, C, D. I'll do it for you, right? Very often people need all 3. I made an interesting mistake some years ago. My wife was not feeling well. She says, my love, I'm not feeling well. So I'm rushing in as super dad. I'm like, don't worry, I've got it sorted. I will sort out dinner for the kids. I'll make a plan for them. I'll do this and this and this. So I'm thinking I'm the heroic husband who needs to be appreciated. Later on that evening, she says to me, I don't know if you really understand how I'm feeling. Can you see what's happened? I got defensive because I'm like, of course I understand how you're feeling. That's why I've been doing this. I was showing her empathic concern. I'm here for you. What was she showing? What is she needing? She needed emotional empathy. I feel you. Very often people need more than one type of empathy. Does that make sense? Because I understood the principle, I was able to say to her after a while, you know what's actually happening here? What you need from me is emotional empathy. I need to ask you more than 2 questions deep about how you're feeling. What I'm just focusing on is empathic concern. Solution. I'm here for you. I made a plan. Be present to highlight their differentiation. One of the things functional families do differently is they don't clone everyone. They understand that, you know what, I'm good at these subjects and this is the career I chose. You're good at those other things, become great at what you're called to do. Instruct a child in the way he should go, right? And then he won't depart from it. Not in the way you should go. Sometimes we become so domineering and rigid. This is the best career for you. You know, take over my business, do this, do that. What if they're not wired for that, right? So be present to highlight their differentiation. Find out from them, what do you love doing? How are you hardwired? Okay? So differentiation. In a functional family, we must express boundaries and celebrate and respect appropriate privacy. That's also differentiation. There was a particular old friend of mine. His wife passed away a couple of years ago. He's got 2 children. The kids were very close to the mom. They had a strong bond. Now, as a family, they were figuring out, how do we relate to dad? How do we do this family thing? I had to go in and counsel them. And it was interesting because his daughter, one of the things she said, right? And, you know, as an 18-year-old person, she said, one of the things that annoys me is when my dad knocks on the door, but doesn't wait for me to actually answer my bedroom door, right? You know, when someone like knocks and then they just come in and so on. And for her, she wanted to be differentiated. I'm a woman, I'm a female. I want to feel distinct and significant here. This is my private area, okay? Are you respecting your children's boundaries? Are you the kind of person who just go and start fixing the collar for your child? Or do you say, hey, do you want your shirt to be hanging out like this? Or would you rather tuck it in, right? Hey, your collar is like this. Can I fix it for you? Right? It's little things in our languaging we need to do. One of the worst things for me is when I ask a child a question and the mom answers. I don't know if you guys experience that. For me, it triggers me. I've had to say to certain moms, it's moms who typically do it, but I've had to sometimes say, like, I'm not asking you, I'm asking your child, just to break that thing. You know that someone was sent to me, I think it was 2 girls sent to me, right? And they basically said, the mom said, my children struggle with social phobia. In other words, they're super shy. Can you help them out, please? When you've got 2 siblings struggling with the same thing, often it's a parenting issue, isn't it? There's a dysfunction in the family system. So I look and I ask them more than 2 questions deep, and guess what they say to me? They say, the problem is our mom answers questions for us. You know those people where you ask them, so what sport are you into? And then the parent steps in, like, yeah, he used to be in ballet, she used to be in ballet, but now is doing tennis. We've changed. I'm asking the child, not you. The child grows up thinking, I can't answer perfectly. Mom will always do that for me. So they become socially lazy, and it becomes a habit. And you also see this with couples, by the way. Okay? So you want to celebrate how differentiated they are, how unique they are, right? Because everyone is so entangled in each other's every move, family enmeshment occurs, where you don't quite know, where does mom end, where does dad begin? You don't quite know, where does dad end and where does the firstborn begin? You know, you ask this to some ladies, you say to them, what food do you like? My hubby likes this, the kids like this, we can now afford this. What do you like? Person has forgotten what they like because they're so enmeshed in everyone else. Okay? You don't know where you end. You don't know where the next person begins. So how do you help your child to discover their purpose? Find out what their high leverage activities are. Ask them questions like this. For what do you receive the most compliments? For what are you the go-to person for? If I wake you up at 2 a.m., what are you willing to do without complaining or grumbling? I was trying to help my kids with their life purpose, and I asked them that question. They said, playing computer games, right? What do you get so absorbed doing that you lose track of time? And we have to ask you, it's supper time now, it's lunchtime now. What's that thing for you? What's that thing that you can do with minimal effort, yet people are just blown away and they're like, thanks for so much sacrifice. Thanks for all the hard work. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, you know you winged it. They're key questions you can ask your children to help them discover their purpose in life. Then your job is to nurture that, not having them become a mini you. They can copy your faith. The Bible says, be imitators of their faith, right? They can copy your faith levels, but they don't have to have the same hairstyle, same fashion sense. Those are boundary things, aren't they? You're allowing them to be themselves. Did you choose your career? Did you choose the career that you felt was right for you? Or was it chosen for you by someone else? How do you feel about that? Did you marry the person you wanted to marry? Okay. So a good parent actually knows the power that they have to shape their child, but they don't abuse it. If you decide to study that other thing, I won't pay. That's manipulation, domination, and control, right? Do your kids have to support the same team as you? Some of you know I'm a big Man United fan, but I said years ago to my boys, you know, they were all Man United fans by default with me. They assumed they had to be. But at a certain point, I said, guys, you actually don't have to support the same team as me. It's up to you who you want to support, right? Samuel now supports Man City. Daniel, for a long time, has supported Tottenham. I won't go into the stories of how that happened, right? Jaden is the only one who still supports Man United with me. They support different teams, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with going to the shops on their birthday and buying a Man City thing for my son, a Tottenham thing for my other son. That's what they've chosen. They're not me. So differentiation is to do with preferences. It's to do with taste. It's to do with individual style. It's not to do with moral standards. It's not, I'm not saying, say to your kids, hey, anything you want to do, just do it. No, they're staying under your roof. The things we've said to our kids, there's a way we want to raise you, and you need to honor that. In this family, we don't do A, B, C, D. And some of those things aren't necessarily wrong to do, but we've got certain standards. But we've said to them, when you leave, it's up to you. We hope you continue living with our standards. But you know what? When you're now doing your own thing, paying your own bills, doing your stuff, you're going to have to choose. We've done our bit. Hopefully, you'll choose right. But I can't control that. That's where you have to have faith. You have to trust. Okay? Did you grow up in a home where you were mocked for your preferences and tastes? Just ask yourself that question. And by the way, I'll be sharing these slides also, hey? You'll get the PDF of all of these. I'll send them to Felix and you'll get them. Okay? How did it impact you when you were mocked because you liked something else? Do you know the uniqueness of your spouse and of your offspring? And are you affirming and validating it? Especially when it's not the same as yours. Their sporting preferences, the things they like to do. How do you communicate differentiation? Establish space boundaries. Allow them to be able to say, this is my space. Set limits. You know, when you set limits, you're able to say, for example, to your spouse, if they're entertaining people, guys, it's been real, carry on. I need an early start tomorrow morning, so I'm going to go to bed now. It's where you're able to do that. That's called setting limits. I could teach you about 12 different boundaries. Those are just 2. A space boundary is where you say, when my wife, 2017, got her new car, she said, kids, no eating in this car. I know you're wondering, Paul, how long did that last? Okay. That's a space boundary. A space boundary is where you can say, guys, no smoking in this lounge. If you want to smoke, go outside and just watch what direction the wind is blowing, right? It's your space. Setting limits is what I spoke about. Guys, I'm going to bed now. It's been real. You can establish body boundaries. What do you permit people to see? What do you allow them to see? You know, sometimes children don't know. They just, you know, my boys at that stage now where they like looking at their 6-packs and things like that. You know, there's something I failed to really fully reinforce, but I was like, guys, when it's dinner time, when we're sitting at the table, please put your shirts on. And often they push that boundary like, but it's hot. But I just want to look up in the mirror. And they do their thing. Dad, you run so much, but look, it's not working. Look, when they see a bit of my flab, okay? But we have to establish body boundaries. Practicing assertiveness, teaching them that, you know what, there's nothing wrong with being assertive. And they can also be assertive with you as a parent. You know, we're shocked sometimes that our children grow up as adults. They can't stand up to people at work. They can't stand up to bullies at school. But we've never allowed them to disagree with us on anything and express themselves. So we squash them at home, but then we expect them to be assertive at work one day. No, we have to train them to be assertive. What is assertiveness? Well, you don't want to be aggressive. Aggression is, I'm okay, you're not okay, and you talk down on everyone. You don't want them to be passive. Passivity is, I'm not okay, but you guys are all okay, and they become doormats. Assertive comes from an interesting Latin word. It means to declare, not just negative things, positive things. So when you can say, nice shirt, nice shoes, nice glasses, that's being assertive also. It just means to declare and to feel comfortable doing so. It's where I can say, I'll stand up for my rights, right? I respect myself enough to stand up for my rights, but I respect you enough for me to do so respectfully. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm okay enough to stand up for my rights. You're okay enough for me to do so respectfully. That's being assertive. And you want to train them up to be like that. And where does it start? It's with you. It's what I call custom-made parenting. There are things a girl needs from her father, and there are things a boy needs from her father. And guys, those things aren't all the same. And I want to share with you some of those things. How many of you have daughters here? Hey, it's nice. Some of us don't. One of the things girls look for from their dads is the freedom to be a child. When a girl grows up too quickly and has to look after mom and dad, counseling them because of their issues, looking after irresponsible brothers and things like that, and they get into caretaker mode, research has found that it affects them negatively when it comes to romantic relationships later on in life. A girl needs to have that season of her life where she enjoys just being a little girl. Allow her to be that. The second thing that's been found is active involvement and interest, right? Dad is interested in my stuff. When a girl turns 12, 13, it's a very sensitive time of her life, okay? And when she's around that age, the role of the father is critical. Critical, critical, critical. Because she wants to know that I'm dad's princess. That dad enjoys hanging out with me. I'm worthy of his time. If a girl at that age doesn't get that from her dad, very often she'll look for it in boys because she wants to know, am I pretty? Am I beautiful? Do I have what it takes? If she doesn't go the boy route, if she's super smart in class, she becomes a workaholic later on in the workplace, but also addicted to high marks, perfectionist, because that's what gets her attention from the teachers. So you end up having addictive behavior there. So your role, dads, when she's this age is crucial. Sometimes it's just hanging out with her, right? So a key thing is you want her to see that dad actually enjoys my stuff, even if it's a sport I'm into that he's not into, right? They want you to be the first and foremost fan. Your girl doesn't want a drill sergeant. Boys like drill sergeants. Boys don't mind being coached by their dads. Hey, you're not doing this right. Hey, kick this way, do this and so on. But on average, girls want to know, dad is my biggest fan, not my coach. Someone else can coach me. With a lot of girls, they become sensitive when dad says, you're not doing this right. They feel like he's criticizing me. So watch out for that. Big thing they're asking is, dad, pursue me. Dad is interested in me, not just because I'm good at something or I get good marks. He's interested in me as a person. That reinforces her self-acceptance. So important. The third thing a girl is looking for from you as a father is a healthy marriage. He wants to know, she wants to know, dad loves mom. Dad is kind to women. How you are towards your wife will influence how she chooses a husband one day. Either she will make a vow, an inner vow, I'm going to get someone who's the exact opposite of my dad. Okay? That's just how kids process things. Or you wanted to actually see that my dad is the standard, and I'm going to choose someone who loves me like I saw my dad loving my mom. Okay? She wants to know that you'll support her even when things are tough. I've got dad's backup. I've got dad's support. She wants to know that there's confidentiality, that there's this special thing you guys have where it's not like, oh, I said this to my dad. Next thing he's blabbering it at dinner. Next thing is telling all my brothers or all my sisters. No, she wants to know that there's that confidentiality. Think about friendship. What's one of the marks of a good friendship? There's exclusive information that's shared, isn't it? With your friends, there's this dynamic of, hey, dude, you and so-and-so are the only people who know about this. Okay? Unconditional love. Does dad love me even when I've failed? Will he still support me? She needs to see you as spiritual head. She needs to see your spiritual leadership. It's not healthy for her to just get that from mom. She needs to see dad's role in that. She needs to experience tenderness and warmth. I've had men come to me and say, Paul, this is awkward. As my daughter is growing older, I don't know. How can I touch her? How can I don't, where does it become like inappropriate? What do I do? And those are journeys to navigate. But they want some degree of affection from dad. That's important. What does the boy need from his father? How many of you have got sons here? Okay. All right. Now, researchers found that even if you don't live with your boys, right, if you're in a blended situation, if you learn how to co-parent, you can still make a difference. So the first thing your boys need from you is validation of their manhood. Here's some nuggets. Son, you have what it takes to be a man in this world. I'm not anxious about whether you'll make it or not, right? And then you relate to them accordingly. One of the things I've learned is this. Don't speak to your sons like they're boys. Speak to them like the men that you want to raise. Even if they react like they're boys, boys understand the language of respect. And if you speak to them in a respectful way, they respond to that. If you say, is that an adult way of relating? Is that a mature way of relating, how you've just done? And you see them becoming that. Here's the scary thing. People become how they are seen by authority figures whom they respect and admire after 5 years. When my kids were still young, what is the main thing they would say to me? Daddy, 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 did you see me diving into the pool? Daddy, daddy, who's better at soccer, me or my brothers? And you're not allowed to say we're all the same. Who's better? What is the child looking for? Validation. I'm a man. I can make it in this world. And very often they internalize how you see them. Right? They internalize how you see them. Now, if you grew up in a family where you're told children must be seen, not heard, in psychology, there's what's called transference. People take that and they transfer it onto adult relationships one day. So I'm seeing people sitting on excos, sitting on mancos, and they still have that mindset. Children must just be seen, not heard. And you just see them quiet. I'll only speak when the boss speaks. I'll never disagree with these people. And they've always got this blank look on their face. If you've always got a blank look on your face, people just fill in the blank. And you won't like what they're filling it in with. They just walk away saying he's not confident. We want to raise confident kids. And how do we do that? We allow them to speak. We allow them to disagree with us. And we tell them this is why we believe this, etc. At the end of the day, the buck stops with us. But we get to hear their opinions. What boys need from their fathers is a role model of a law-abiding citizen. Researchers found that, and this is research on thousands of fathers, by the way, that men who break the law are far more likely to have fathers who also break the law, who also broke the law. For sons of law-abiding fathers, only 4% were found to be convicted of more than one delinquent act. Isn't that amazing? In contrast, for sons of law-breaking fathers, about 40% committed more than one delinquent act. What are you role modeling? Then there's the sex talk, obviously. Boys need that from their fathers. And fathers often don't feel confident doing that because their fathers didn't do that. What you want to show your children is that they can say no to unwanted sexual activity. You want to show your boys that. Okay? And people make advances. I still remember we're at the beach, was it last year, end of last year or so? And one girl just walks up to my wife. And I'm sitting there and she says, please, can I have permission? She sounds so polite. Can I have permission to speak to your son, please? You know? And my wife was like, what's going on here? And I quickly intervened and I was like, oh, no, Samuel must set the boundaries himself, you know? And so I'm like, yes. And I'm now overhearing the conversation. And this girl is literally throwing herself onto my son. And I was proud of him that he resisted and so on. But I realized that, and afterwards, when I was taking him to the gym, I'm like, Okay, Samuel, let's talk about this now. You know, what happened there? Okay, boundaries. Okay, what did you say? You have to master the art of embarrassing sin before sin embarrasses you. So it's an ongoing dialogue. Another big thing is time. Boys need time. With boys, it's actually not quality time. It's quality and quantity. They don't want to feel like, oh, you're now making up for all the lost time this year when you didn't spend time with me, right? And boys tend to open up only when you're in the middle of doing things with them in their world. You're playing something with them, and then they start sharing in their terms. Boys don't typically open up when you say, okay, let's talk now. So, how's school going? That's when you get the one-word answers, okay? So, time. I remember with my youngest son years ago, we were going to watch Samuel play a particular sport in Joburg, and we were driving, and Daniel was talking to me so much in the car. But Samuel had already gone with the school bus for that match. And I remember feeling annoyed with Daniel because I didn't know, is he talking to himself? Is he talking to me? And I was physically exhausted. And the Lord convicted me and basically said, are you going to kill time with Daniel? Are you going to spend time with Daniel? Or are you going to invest time into Daniel? And I realized, sure, he has this wonderful soul. And I've got 45 minutes uninterrupted with just him. Why don't I maximize and invest time? Right? You see, boys are always acting out. And sometimes they act out externally. So they become aggressive, they become violent, and they become disobedient. But they're acting out their pain. Sometimes it's internalizing factors. You know, you can be angry and explode externally, or you can implode internally, right? You can experience anxiety, depression, mood disorders. Do you know what's been found? When a father is present, it actually helps to mitigate the externalizing factors and internalizing factors. It's been found that married fathers who reported frequently shopping, playing a sport, going to entertainment events, playing games, cooking, or watching television with their children were more likely to have children who didn't exhibit externalizing or internalizing symptoms. Just your presence. Not trying to fix them, not trying to psychoanalyze them, just your presence. That's what the research shows. Our boys need warmth. They need affection. They need tenderness. And sometimes we need to give them that even when we're not getting it back. That's how we teach them, right? What did the research find? Children of dads who treated them affectionately as an infant scored significantly higher on standardized measures of cognitive ability, right? Measured by reading and maths at age 4. And the finding remained true regardless of ethnicity. So this is not a cultural thing. You know, people, it's not in my culture to hug my kids. In fact, dad's frequency of kissing and hugging his son at 2 years old was one of the factors loading onto the construct of warmth that positively predicted son's reading and math scores. More recently, I've had to learn to communicate, I love you, to my boys. So important to do that and not diluting it with the royal we. Hey, so guys, we really love you and we care about you. Hey, so guys, we can dilute it because it's like not the manly thing to do, right? Children are more likely to obey their parents, like I said earlier on, when there's an emotional bond between them. A big thing is speech. We have to teach our boys how to express their pain verbally. Boys don't have as many words as girls. We know that. So how do I stop my son from acting out something physically to actually saying, Jaden or Samuel or Daniel, how did you feel about what your brother said about XYZ? How did you feel when your mom said this and this to you? Giving them the vocab to talk, not to just be physical. So important from a young age. So I want to land this message by talking about the counterfeits. I've shared with you what a present father needs to do. I've shared with you what a present husband needs to do. We need to remove the masks. We need to remove the counterfeits. Counterfeit number one, Mr. Superhero. If you've been that superhero, it becomes part of your identity as a man. And you end up thinking, because I've made this money, because I'm this successful business person, because I've climbed the corporate ladder, surely I've done something good, and you guys must all love and appreciate me. Nothing replaces your presence. And that's why I have to say to myself, I'm still worthy in Christ, even if I haven't got a bank balance that says X. A lot of men struggle with that. For some of you, it's Mr. Know-it-all, where your identity is in what you know. And you're this person where as long as I can just reel out the data and I've got answers for everyone, then I'm a present father. It's okay not knowing certain things. Our boys look up to us. Dad, what about this? Dad, how does this work? A lot of stuff they ask me, I don't know. Hey, you know what? I need to look into that. Sorry, Jades, I'll get back to you on that. I don't have to be a know-it-all. I don't have to pretend. You know what, Jades, speak to my friend so-and-so. He's more clued up about investments than me. Rather speak to him. Then there's the villain, unfortunately, the bad boy. Well, if you guys think I'm like this, if my wife criticizes me like this, then I'll be the bad boy. Then there's Mr. Joker, where we trivialize everything. And we just use our sense of humor to create a nice environment at home, make everyone laugh, but there's serious, deep issues we're facing. And there's Mr. Power Man. Let me control everyone. Dad, why do we have to do this? Because I said so. Yeah, your children can comply with you, but just remember your goal is to have well-adjusted adults one day. You can force them out of coercion to listen to you, but deep inside, they're just like, I'm longing to get out of this prison. And you won't know them after they've left home. You'll be parked off there by yourself, just you and your wife, saying, what are we doing this Christmas? That's the last thing you want. You want to maintain the bond. There's Mr. Moneybags. As long as I can provide for them, they will like me. You know when that ends, guys? When they're making their own money and they don't need your money. Then you had a need to be needed. Now, the control and the domination you have because you're paying for this or not paying for that, it's gone. Because they're making their own money. My kids have already told me their plans in terms of wealth, and what they'll be able to do. And there's Mr. Super Athlete. As long as I train hard, as long as I look good, look the part, then I'm someone. Then there's Mr. Lover Boy. You can be married, but still need the admiration of the ladies out there. As long as I get that, then I'm good. We have to die to all of these things because these are pseudo identities we have. And we have to come to a place where we have a revelation that I am worthy because I have Christ and Christ is enough. The Bible says you're complete in Christ. And it's from my worthiness that I do all these accomplishments and achievements, as opposed to I have to do all those things to feel worthy about myself. And it's that starting point of our identity in Christ that we can then become a fully present man. I'm going to close with this. My job in life is to say, how does Father God view my wife? My job is to reinforce that view, to help her feel how God feels about her. How does Father God view my kids? My job as a father is to be present with his presence and reinforce that to them. If I can do that, I've gone a long way in being the present man. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate your time and the challenge that you give there at the end. how effectively you are challenging us to represent God well, which is a big challenge in all what we do. We are out of time, and we need to release this man immediately. I'm going to ask Brother Simba to close for us in prayer.
Father, I thank you for your presence. I thank you. I thank you for the message that Pastor Paul has spoken. Father, I pray that you bless the work of his hands, increase him, even as he teaches others. Father, I pray that everybody who's listened to this message would change, that we would all be present fathers with your help and present husbands. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Right. Let's end it here.